Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Facebook Live conversation. We're so delighted that you can join us today. I'm Gary Lonkey, and with me is Sister Jenny Wilson. And we're here live from Sister Jenny's classroom at Nativity Miguel School in Buffalo, New York. For the next 25 to 45 minutes, I'll be talking to Sister Jenny about her life as a Sister of Mercy. And you are invited to ask questions and submit comments, too, through Facebook. Sister Jenny will try to respond to as many of your questions as possible while we are on live. So let's get to it. I'll ask some questions, and it will be off camera because I'm moving off camera, and Sister Jenny is going to have the stage. And Sister Jenny, while I do that, why don't you tell our viewers about how long you have been a Sister of Mercy?
All right. Thank you, Gary. Before I start, I just would like to give a shout out to one high school, Marian Mercy High School in Philadelphia, that is listening. I would also like to give a shout out to my students in the next room and to any Sisters of Mercy that are listening. So, Gary, you asked me about being a Sister of Mercy, about why I decided to join, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so being a Sister of Mercy was a long process. I didn't just decide yesterday. It took me actually about 12 years, but I was a Mercy Corps volunteer in Philadelphia, and I met the Sisters of Mercy. When I first met the sisters, I admired what they did, but I didn't think that I wanted to be one of them. And often they would say, "Jenny, I think you should be a Sister of Mercy." And I would say to them, "Well, I don't think so." And then I couldn't run away fast enough. I wanted to get married and I wanted to have kids. But as my life progressed, I realized that God was calling me to something different. And I decided to be a volunteer in Guyana, South America. And that's where I really began to discern and think about becoming a sister.
Talk a little bit, Sister Jenny, about what exactly drew you to religious life, and can you tell us a little more detail of how that happened for you?
When I met the sisters in Guyana, they serve the people in a country that doesn't always have a lot of resources. And when I saw that happening, something inside me began to change, and I began to think that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going to have a family and I wasn't going to have kids, and maybe God was calling me to something different. So as I began to discern and to really pray about it, I knew that God was calling me to do something that I didn't really want to do. And that's how I began to see that maybe it was the right decision.
And keep in mind, we invite your questions and comments on Facebook. Sister Jenny, how did your family and friends influence you in your decision to become a sister? Were they supportive?
My family, they didn't really understand it, and when I came home from Guyana, I was really thinking about being a sister, and I didn't want to tell them, confess to them, so I kind of kept a secret for a while, and then finally I told my parents, and they were a little bit concerned because they weren't sure if this was the right decision. They imagined me having a big family. They wanted a lot of grandchildren. But then as they see me live out my life as a Sister of Mercy, they know that I'm doing exactly what God is calling me to do. And they see how happy I am, and they are very supportive. My parents, they raised me Catholic, but we didn't have a lot of sisters in our area, so there wasn't a lot of influence that way. But I was raised Catholic, and then when I went to college, I was involved in campus ministry, and I began to see how my faith intersects with my life and how I can continue that. And that's how I got to Mercy Volunteer Corps, and then from Mercy Corps I joined the sisters.
Do you live with other sisters, and what is that experience like for you?
So right now my everyday life, and it has been for 10 years since I entered, I have lived with different groups of sisters, and we live in community. We pray together, we eat together, we share our lives together, and it's a great source of support. And currently I'm at Nativity Miguel, which we'll talk about, but it's a middle school for girls, junior high girls, and the sisters are very supportive of anything that I might need to continue my ministry. And without them, I don't think that I would be able to do ministry. So blending community and ministry together is a big part of who I am as a Sister of Mercy.
Well, we are here at Nativity Miguel Middle School. Tell us a little bit about this school. When did you start teaching here, and what subjects do you teach at the school?
I've been teaching at Timmy Miguel for 4 years. You can see some of my students in the background. I teach a variety of subjects. This year I'm teaching social studies, science, and religion. And this school provides the students with good education so that they go on to succeed in their lives. And many of our students go on to Catholic schools for high school.
Now, teaching middle school students, I understand you get a lot of questions from them about what life as a sister is like. And yeah, I'm sure you do. You're smiling there.
They ask me a lot of questions. They're smiling too, right?
So if you wouldn't mind asking some of the questions of your students, some of the questions that they have on their mind. Like, for instance, why did you become a sister?
So a lot of the questions that they ask, top of the list is why. They always want to know why. Because to them, and to many people, it's so different from what most people do in their lives. So why do you want to share your things? Why do you want to take a vow of poverty? Why do you want to live differently than other people? And really, it's not that much different. It's just taking what God has given me and using it in a different way. So when I really started to realize that I could do this and still be who I am today, then I knew that the Sisters of Mercy were for me. And I always tell my students when I try to think about what would a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, what do they want to know about why I tried this? And it's really just because what I was feeling inside, I knew that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be living my life the way God wanted me to.
Do you really have to share everything?
That's like a number one question from them. I still chuckle when I think about what they asked me, do I have to share my clothes? And no, I don't. They're laughing because they know that they asked that, right? No, I don't have to share my clothes, but it's more about sharing everyday life and living a simple life, and the money that I earn in my ministry goes to help all of us, not just one person. And that's a difficult concept for a lot of people to understand, especially students who oftentimes think about materialism and think about what the culture teaches them. So it's a different way, and it's something that I have grown into. And the students often ask me why I don't have a smartphone. And it's really difficult sometimes to make those decisions between what I need and what I want. Certainly that's what I want, but that's not necessarily what I need to live my life. So living a life, when I made my vow of poverty, it's really just making decisions about what I really need and what I want and how those decisions will help other people live.
And this is a question from one of your students. What do you do when you are not teaching us?
So they're always asking me that, and sometimes I have to miss school to go to meetings, and they want to know what we do at these meetings. So a lot of time when I'm not in school is devoted to spending time with my sisters. Sometimes we have meetings to discuss our future or where we're going with religious life. We also do fun things together. We always eat dinner together. We pray together at least once, usually twice a day. And I also do regular things. I like to run. I like to watch movies. I like to read books. So my life is very regular, but it has an added dimension of making sure that I'm really being and doing what God is calling me to and what God is calling the Sisters of Mercy to.
And another question from one of your students, why don't you wear a habit?
So that's a question that many people ask, not just students. And to try to explain, I do teach social studies, so I try to explain the history and about how we changed after Vatican II. And sometimes I use the story of when I was ministering at a homeless shelter when I had first decided to become a sister. And somebody there who was a former prostitute had told me, if you were dressed in a habit, I wouldn't be able to relate to you. So I use that story as I am a normal person, and sometimes people don't know, but by the way I live my life, they know that something is different. So even though I don't have a habit as an actual symbol, I have the example of who we are and who I am as a sister.
Well, your students know that prayer is pretty important to your life. How many times do you pray a day?
Well, they're always asking me how many times a day I pray. And I tell them that I have my own time of personal prayer, and I also have community prayer. So in the morning, I pray with the two sisters that I live with, and we use something called the Mercy Prayer Book, and it's an adaptation of the Liturgy of the Hours, and we pray that together. And then there are times when we might pray it in the evening, and there are also times when I might take something called an 8-day retreat, which is an 8-day silent retreat. And so during that time, prayer is definitely more involved, and it's 8 days of silence, which they always laugh and giggle and can't believe that I would be silent for 8 days. So there are times in my life as a Sister of Mercy where we pray in different ways. We pray together in community, and we pray together by ourselves.
Do other sisters pray with you, and describe that experience?
So we pray together in the morning, and we use a prayer book, and then we always mention the students and the other people in our ministries that we want to remember as we pray.
So is that a powerful experience for you?
I think it's something that keeps me grounded as a Sister of Mercy. I pray with them at 6:30 in the morning because then I leave for ministry, and they make an effort to always be there even though it's early for them, and they don't need to be up that early, but because I need to go to ministry, it's important to all of us. So it's important for all of us to be together and to see it helps us have direction to our lives. And when I don't pray with them, if I'm at home or I'm on vacation, I miss that time of being together, and sometimes I don't feel as centered if I don't have that.
Keep in mind, those of you viewing our interview, that you can ask your questions and comments of Sister Jen on Facebook, so we look forward to hearing from you. I'm going to divert away from some of the questions that the students asked, and I think it was in August of 2015 when you professed your perpetual vows as a Sister of Mercy. I was there at that ceremony. Tell me a little bit about that ceremony and what that was for you.
So some of my students, I'm turning towards them because they were there, and it was a really important moment in my life, because the process to become a Sister of Mercy or any religious sister or brother is fairly long. For the Sisters of Mercy and for most orders, it's anywhere from 7 to 10 to 14 years. So it took me about 10 years till I completed the process. And once I completed the process, it was celebrated by making final vows. So about 5 years before I had that ceremony, I became a Sister of Mercy. So I was already a sister, but my vows would expire. So instead of the vows expiring, then I say yes for life, and the community says yes, we're going to accept the sister for life. So at the ceremony, I take vows of poverty and...
So you're taking the vows, and I remember in interviewing some of the Sisters of Mercy over the years, they said that fourth vow of service is so important. How does that reflect with you?
For me, it's one of the main reasons that I became a sister. I continue to grow into my relationship with God, and I do that by how I reflect myself and how I teach and how I serve others in the world.
Now we're going to go back to some of the questions that your students have had for you. Are you sure that God really asked you not to have kids?
They're giggling because they know. They know that that's a question that they ask all the time. And a lot of times, I think my students and others think that being a sister is a lonely life. And for me, it's not lonely at all. And the focus is the Sisters of Mercy. We say our community, the Sisters of Mercy are my community. And the focus is also on others. So if I had 1 or 2 or 8 kids, my focus would be totally on my family and on kids. But because I am able to be in the world differently, I can reach out to others. So that has been really, really important for me. And I have had some special relationship with some refugee families for about 10 years. And I think that I wouldn't be able to have those relationships or to be as much of a part of the community as I am. And so by doing that, then I can reach out to God and to others. And one of my vows is a vow of celibacy. So by being totally dedicated to the Sisters of Mercy and to God, I'm able to live my life in a different way.
And another question from a student, do you ever get lonely? And if so, what do you do about that?
I think that as human beings, we all get lonely. So it wouldn't matter if I had a family and 10 kids. I think that sometimes you could still feel lonely in the middle of that. So it's learning to who you are as a person, what your relationship with God is. And usually if I'm feeling like that, I go running. And after 5 miles, I'm too tired to think about it. No. So you just learn ways to deal with it. And there's not really much of an opportunity for that to happen because you're always supported by your Sisters of Mercy, by the sisters. There are 3,000 of us in the world, or in the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas. So I have plenty of people to support me and to support me in my relationship with God.
And one of your students wants to know, are you sure that you're okay with not having a smartphone?
So my students always tell me that I need to upgrade. Girls, you say I need to upgrade? Look at them nodding their head, yes. Because that's just one special way, one way of living poverty. And that's just a clear, concrete example that I can give to them. There are many examples that I can give to them about how I live out each one of my vows. And so, yes, I'm really okay with it. And I have certainly access to technology. And that's really all that we need, all that I need.
We're going to be wrapping up this interview in just a short time, and I understand your students have something to read, or?
Yes, they have prepared a little statement. We were just talking about, like, how do each of us make a difference in our school, and how do we help each other? And so they were just thinking about ways, what they've learned from me being here as a Sister of Mercy. So I think each of them are ready. So Leah's going to come up, and she's going to say what she has. Come up here, all the way up. Good.
I have learned that being a sister means devoting your life to God. It also means that you make an impact on other people's lives.
Okay, good, Leah. Thank you. Anani.
So I've learned that being a sister means that you share your faith.
And Anani is going to one of our Mercy High Schools, all you Sisters of Mercy out there. So she'll be showing her faith as an example to everybody at Mercy High School. Go ahead.
Well, I have learned that being a sister means more than just sitting down and praying. It means helping others in the community, like Sister Jenny helped us in teaching us in school.
You go ahead. Oh yeah, and Tajane is also going to Mount Mercy.
I have learned that becoming a sister takes a long time and it is a process.
All right, very good.
Actually, Sister Jen, we do have some questions coming in from Facebook, and one question is, let's see here, what about from Lisa? What surprised you about becoming a Sister of Mercy? What surprised you most?
I think I was surprised at first about how long the process took. And I used to think, well, they need sisters in the world. Why does it take so long? But I wasn't prepared for how much I would learn in the process, and by taking theology classes and really start learning the history of who the Sisters of Mercy are. And actually, I was really lucky to be able to go to Ireland, where the Sisters of Mercy were started, and our foundress was Catherine McCulley. And right before I made final vows, about 14 of us went to Ireland, kind of like on a pilgrimage to learn more about our history. And I'm really, I think, surprised by how much I am a Sister of Mercy, how our charism, how who we live our lives out as sisters affects everything that I do, and how I really have grown to be a Sister of Mercy, and it really does take a long time. So the 10 years that it took until I stood up there and said my vows in front of everyone, it really was, it was worth it. So people who are just starting the process might think, oh, it's not worth it to be a Sister of Mercy, or it's not worth it to be a sister, it takes too long. But what else would I be doing in those 10 years? And so I'm really grateful for all those opportunities.
Here's another question from Facebook from Emily. What role did Catholic campus ministry play in your life in college?
So I think this is directly from somebody who knows my story and who knows that I wouldn't be here without campus ministry, because campus ministry helped me to learn so much about my Catholic faith that I didn't, like when I became an adult, I didn't know that much. So it really helped me to become a sister, because they encouraged me to do volunteer experiences, and my campus minister encouraged me to look at volunteer programs, and that's how I found the Mercy Volunteer Corps. And so without campus ministry, I wouldn't have done Mercy Volunteer Corps, and then without Mercy Volunteer Corps, I wouldn't have become a Sister of Mercy.
Ellis sent in a question via Facebook. What is your favorite part of teaching girls?
They're smiling back there. I really enjoy being able to be an influence on their lives as a Sister of Mercy, and we have a special call to reach out to women and children. It's part of our charism. So by teaching girls, I'm showing them how they can become great young ladies, and they hear this all the time, that we're not here for ourselves, we're here to help them. And I think to be able to empower women is a really important call.
Here's an interesting question from Ben. Why did you choose the Sisters of Mercy rather than another religious order? Well, what was it that attracted you to the Sisters of Mercy?
There's something called Vision Magazine, and I was just looking at it the other day, and there are so many orders, pages and pages and pages of orders. And I was kind of thinking, what did draw me to the Sisters of Mercy? And for me, it was the human connection with sisters. I grew up Catholic, but I had never met a Sister of Mercy until I went to Philadelphia, and I met Sister Eileen Campbell, who worked for Mercy Volunteer Corps. And so for me, the attraction and the actual joining the Sisters of Mercy was because I had been connected to them through Mercy Volunteer Corps. But there are many apostolic orders that are very similar to ours, and I believe that you grow into your charism and you grow into who the Sisters of Mercy are. But I was attracted mostly to the service, but also how they live their lives through contemplation and through prayer, and I saw that. And some of the Sisters of Mercy in Philly, I can see that they're watching this, and they know that they would always ask me to be a sister, and I would feel like I was going to throw up on the way home. Like I couldn't run away fast enough. So you can't run away from your call, and it took me about 10 years from the time I first met them till I said, yes, I think that I am going to at least try this.
Well, Ben has been sending in questions on behalf of students from a Mercy school in Baltimore, and they want to know, how do you listen to God's voice in your daily life?
That's a great question, because a lot of times my kids will say to me, Sister Jenny, did you get a call to be the sister? And I always say, yes, I answered my cell phone and God asked me to be a sister, which is not true. It's definitely about finding time in your life to have silence. So even for me, being on Facebook and being on the computer and always thinking about my students and my lesson plans, it can become hard to listen to what God is saying. So I make sure that I take at least a half hour every day of complete silence. That way I can reflect on where God has been in my life and where God is calling me to be. Because if I'm not quiet, I'm not going to be able to hear what God is saying. And it's not like when I tell my students, the first day that I heard, it was like a voice, but it wasn't a voice. It was just like something in my head that said, okay, Jenny, I think maybe you should do this sister thing. It wasn't like God, it was God's voice, but it wasn't like God talking directly to me. But only by being quiet could I be able to let all the stuff go and be able to really reflect and hear what God might be saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are in the Eastern time zone, and it is almost lunchtime, and Ben sends a question that says, what is your favorite fast food restaurant?
See, I know these questions are from students, right? But
this is an important one.
Yeah, it's a very important one. I love Mexican food, and during the process of becoming a sister, I did something called the novitiate, and the novitiate is a time of more study and prayer, and our novitiate was in Laredo, Texas. So I went to Laredo and So I would say any restaurant that serves Mexican food or maybe like Tex-Mex is my favorite.
Here's a Facebook question from Sister Patty on behalf of Gwynedd Mercy Academy Juniors. What is the best experience you have had since becoming a Sister of Mercy?
So I have had so many experiences that it's really difficult to describe what my best one is, but some of the experiences that I have had that I really remember very clearly is during my second year novitiate, I had the opportunity to go to San Francisco, and I was there at a Mercy High School, and I was really able to be with the students and really get to learn what the Sisters of Mercy have done. And I think one of my other top experiences is going to Ireland and seeing where Catherine McCauley, who started the Sisters of Mercy, seeing that history as my history and being able to really go home and make vows. And certainly the top experience would be when I stood up in front of 300 people and pronounced my vows as a Sister of Mercy for the rest of my life.
Well, Sister Jenny, I'm going to edge myself back into the camera here to say we want to thank you for joining us today and sharing with us your life as a Sister of Mercy, and for inviting us to your classroom here at Nativity Miguel School in Buffalo, New York. If you have any additional questions for Sister Jenny or about religious life, you can message us here on our Facebook page or go to sistersofmercy.org. That's sistersofmercy.org, where we will have a live chat every day from noon until 10 p.m., I guess.
Not live, but just you can put your questions in.
Okay, it's a chat nevertheless. And we hope that you're all chatting. Also, join us next Tuesday, March 14th at noon Eastern Time, as we go behind the scenes with Sister Mandy, another Sister of Mercy, who is going to tell us about her life as a chef at a day shelter in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So for Sister Jenny Wilson and our students here at Nativity Miguel, I'm Gary Lonke. Have a great weekend.